Okay, thank you, Katerina, and again, I'm the last speaker, so thank you very much for the organization. I think that everybody loves the work and the organization, so thank you very much again. So I'm going to present you a paper. It is a joint paper with Hans Manner from the University of Köln and Dominique Blatt from Maastricht. And the idea is to really evaluate contagion. So I will explain you what I mean by contagion, because I think we have to be precise between contagion, interdependence, spillover. This is not the same. And why it's important to know about contagion. I have a sort of motivation in terms of policy advice. If you look at the crisis, here I'm not exclusively talking about banking crisis, perhaps not even banking crisis, but more currency or stock market crisis. There are two types, fundamentally two types of crises. Those who are based on fundamental bad macroeconomics, bad behavior. That's clear. If you're smoking too much, if you're drinking too much alcohol, you don't do sport, don't eat vegetable enough, then you will have an heart attack. It's a crisis. As IMF, what the doctor will say to you, okay, you have an heart attack, just change your behavior. I cannot do anything for you, just stop smoking, stop drinking, and that will be better. That's what the IMF implemented for a long time. Our Mexican friend in the 80s, they printed too much money, of course, liquidity, inflation to be re-elected. What you have to do? Austerity. Stop printing, behave correctly, and that will be better. Do sports. That was the general approach proposed by the IMF to cure a crisis. The basis paper, I just quote one, Claude and Gerber, 84, that showed that the currency crisis occurred with an increase in money supply in the system. Unfortunately, this dogma has been completely shaken in 1997 because our friend from Asia, they were eating only sushi, fish, not a lot of deficit. They were active, no alcohol, and so on. And still, they are facing a crisis. So you can go to the doctor and say, okay, I have an heart attack. I'm behaving correctly. So in such a case, that's the role of the institution to help you to say, okay, that's bad things, bad behavior, bad luck. And we have to provide you with liquidity to survive. Clearly, this difference is also important in medicine. In the Netherlands now, they are trying to see, okay, as the budget is limited in terms of medical help, should we really cure people that are smoking too much and have a lung cancer? That's their choice. Bad behavior, punishment. Here, if the crisis is not based on bad behavior, of course there should be the support of international organizations. And we try to see further on what could cause this crisis if they are not fundamentally based. Nothing went wrong, they were behaving correctly, and still they are facing a crisis. So Hofstede in 1996 proposed three types of source of this non-fundamental based crisis. We call that also the second generation crisis model. The first one is the self-fulfilling prophecies. Okay, in the UK, 92, George Soros attack on the British pound. Nothing particular bad in the UK this time. And still, the British pound has to leave the SME. That's self-fulfilling prophecies. You're thinking you're sick, and because you're thinking you're sick, you become sick. Okay, perfect. Moral hazard. The second cause of the crisis is to say, okay, I know that I have a fantastic doctor, he can give me a pills, and when I take the pills, no more cirrhosis. It cures my liver problem. What is the impact of that? Everybody rush to whiskey. Okay, I drink, and then take the pills. If I am a government, what does it mean? I want to be re-elected. I print, I increase wages, such that everybody's happy. Okay, there's a big crash, external imbalances, and the IMF cover the deficit I get out without any problem. That's what we call the moral hazard. Of course, it's difficult to evaluate that. Huh? That's the big question between the Greek and the European authorities. Do they behave very badly? The third thing is about contagion. And we already talked about that. A virus arrives. I'm contaminated by this virus. I was fit before, I didn't do anything bad. Of course, I have to be helped by the health system to cure the virus. This difference between the fundamental base and the non-fundamental base are really, really important in terms of policy implementation after a crisis. If it is fundamental based, then austerity package. Then you have to be held correctly. If it is non-fundamental based, okay, bad luck, what can I do? Yeah, I don't know if you remember in 1998 when Russia was in default, the 15th August 98, they changed the prime minister. Chubais has been replacing Kirienko. And the first speech of Chubais was to say, okay, that's bad luck. I cannot do anything. So clearly, what does it mean? I don't want to change anything. I just want the money and the support for the international monetary system. Is it bad luck? Or is it bad behavior? The treatment depends on that. Of course, that's purely theoretical, because we know that sometimes bad luck is associated with bad behavior. It's never completely black, never completely white, but still, the policy in the aftermath of a crisis depends on this fundamental. And so I'm going to focus on this particular non-fundamental based cause of the crisis, which is contagion. So, contagion, what does it mean? It means that you have a particular shock, and suddenly the shock diffuses and transmits to the neighborhood. That's a little bit the map is drawn from the shall we draw this morning. Still, what we want to see, and that's the difference between contagion and interdependence. Contagion, this is a sudden move, or abrupt change, abrupt dependence, which is temporary. If there is, look at the data of the flu, it's cyclical. You get more flu during winter period. The contagion increase. A lot of people are in bed taking aspirin, and then go down. So the link is not permanent, but temporary. If you look at what happened in West Africa at the moment, Ebola, you see there is a spike, and then after the quarantine, the spike is decreasing, and so the prevalence of the virus is decreasing. Of course, this is inherited from the medical vocabulary. And what is difficult in economics is that to really evaluate contagion, you need two things. You need to have the transmission channel. Okay, in the literature you can find three types of transmission channel. The trade channel. This is the Click and Rose paper about the trade, and they prove that if a crisis occurs, it's transmitted regionally, because the trade are more regionally. You trade more with your neighbor than with somebody far away. Trade. Vedder and Van Bakengem, they propose the financial flows. If you exchange a lot of flows or loans between one country and another one, if there is one country going bad, the will also bad. And the third thing is the banking fragility, the fragility of the banking system. That's the main three channels. The big problem is that these channels to evaluate should be stable over time. And what we observe is that the crisis, most of the crises, you have different types of transmission channel. For example, the Mexican crisis, it has been shown that the trade relationship was more in place in the transmission of the disease, whereas during the Asian crisis, that was more the financial flows. On the top of that, you can observe that the transmission channels are changing at the beginning of the crisis and at the end. That's what we observe in Europe at the moment. At the beginning, that was more the banking relationship, the cross-border banking interaction. Now that's more the sort of political relationship or the trade relationship. The transmission channels are not stable over time. And that's a big difficulty, a big difference between medicine and economics. In medicine, so far, without genetic mutation, that can happen for some virus, the flu always transmits via the same channel. So the solution is to block the channel, and then it can go. In economics, it's very difficult. Channels are changing, are not common. So in the literature, what we propose is to have a sort of weak definition of contagion, which is also called the shift contagion. What does it mean? We don't assume anything about the transmission channel. We ignore. We want to have an estimation of contagion without assuming anything about the channel of transmission. What do you observe? You observe two individuals, Mr. A and Mr. B. They have a completely independent life. You don't assume anything about their relationship, their contact, and so on. So they are independent. And suddenly Mr. A catch the flu. Okay? So that means he has 40 degrees fever. He's in bed. At the same time, Mr. B is okay. So what you observe is that their correlation, their dependence is negative. Some days after, you observe that Mr. B is also in bed with fever. They are sharing the same state. So they are very correlated or dependent together. Next phase, Mr. A is recovering, coming back. So then their dependence is also decreasing. And then, after some time, both are beginning to have a similar life than before. So, I didn't assume anything about the channel of transmission. I simply said that what I observed is that the dependence between A and B has gone down, increased, and come back to normality. Right? And that was the idea, the basic idea of the initial paper of King Wadwani, 90, and Haig and Goldfein. What they did, they took several stock markets and they tried to test for correlation and to see if the correlation was increasing during the crisis period. So they consider exogenous crisis period. They take the journal, the newspaper, and they try to detect the date, and they test if the correlation is increasing or decreasing temporarily during this period. That's the basic idea. Of course, correlation, we already noticed that this morning, it's a very bad indicator because it's symmetric. The correlation between X and Y is the same than Y and X. The correlation, of course, it has a bivariate measure between X and Y. If there is Z, okay, how does Z intervene in that? The third thing is that to test for that, they assume the date of the crisis. And, okay, the proof is that the crisis is not on 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It can be quite long, quite short. And so, we have to detect when really a market enters in a crisis. So, to be more less prosaic, we have to assume the endogeneity of the crisis event. One of the major improvement of this literature is the paper of Forbes and Rigoban that all of you know in 2002 in Journal of Finance. Forbes and Rigoban, what do they show is that if you test for correlation and you observe an increase in correlation, you say, okay, great, fantastic, I detect contagion. And they show simply mathematically that this increase in contagion, in correlation, sorry, could be simply caused by the change in volatility. Automatically, if the volatility is increasing, correlation is increasing. So, what does it mean? That does not mean that there are some propagation, some contagion. That simply means that both markets are stressed at the same time. And their conclusion is really strong. They say, okay, contagion does not exist. If you correct, and that's their correction, which is inherited from English and Loretta, if you correct by this term delta, which is the ratio of volatility between the high volatility and the low volatility period, you reject the change in correlation. There is no increase in correlation during crisis. So contagion is rejected. So if there is no contagion, that's not bad luck. That's bad management. So you have to be punished. No pills for you. That's very strong. So as a conclusion, that's very strong. So you can imagine that some governments were not very satisfied with this result. Okay, what we are doing in this paper? In this paper, we're trying to extend the basic into 3 lines. First, we consider the endogenous breakdate. It's not a complete novelty. It has been already done several times to endogenize when you can detect the breakdate. We try to extend the dimension from 2 to n to have a multivariate detection. And why? In particular, to take into account the indirect transmission of a shock. Clearly, that's also something that we want to show, is the strategy of Merkel to ask German banks to deleverage their investment from Greece. That does not reduce the probability of transmission of shock. That's only assume that the direct contagion is reduced, but not the indirect one. So we want to take that into account. We also want to say that if you condition by a set of countries, your test of contagion is much more powerful. Because imagine that the shock moves from X to Y, Y to Z, and you test the correlation between X and Z, you don't observe anything. You have to sequentially X to Y and Y to Z. Actually, that was one proposal in the 2005 paper of Dungey. Let's say, okay, that's better. That would be better to have a multivariate approach for contagion. So far, I don't know some types of extension. The third improvement we are proposing in this paper is to say, okay, in the Fort and Rigobon, what do they assume? They assume that the change in volatility is synchronous, occurs at the same time that the change in correlation. Intuitively, I have a problem, because if I again take the case of this Mr. A and B with the flu, the shock is not transmitted immediately from A to B or B to A. There is always a sort of latent case where one is sick and the other one not. And that's what we observe in several previous papers. We observe that immediately after a crisis, the dependence decreases, contrary to the idea of contagion. So, what was the trick of Forbes and Rigobon? They take the average over 2 days. Some people also work on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. Of course, if you take a yearly, that's contagion. But if you work on high frequency data, I'm not sure that the variance change occur at the same time that the correlation change. I would guess that the volatility, first the market under the stress, so volatility increase, and then there is only the transmission. So my intuition is to say I would guess that the change in volatility occurs before the change in correlation. That's intuition. I want to test this intuition. So how we want to do that? We propose a sequential testing procedure that relies on a nice paper of Kou and Perron in 2007, where they allow for testing breaks, multiple breaks at unknown break points in a multivariate system. So in fact, our asymptotics are very similar to the Kou and Perron, but adapted to sequential testing for the variance and the correlation break point. Okay, I will explain quickly the setup, the procedure, the testing. I will perhaps skip the Monte Carlo. We have something like 25 pages of Monte Carlo experiment. And we will consider the case of the empirical application will be the case of Asia. Our referee didn't like Asia too much. We took that. Why we took that? Because that's some evidence, clear evidence of contagion. We want to have a sigma case. Now I can tell you a little bit more, because in the revision we take the case of European countries and the surrounding. Okay, what is the idea? The idea is to work with a stationary VAR model, and that's where, again, I can stress on the idea of contagion. You have this autoregressive matrix gamma and the residuals. Contagion is not here for us. Here, this is the linkage, the structural relationship between different countries and so on. Of course, there can be some breaks, depending on, for example, if you have a trade agreement, or if you have whatever you want, or integration, material union, then we change the parameters. What we're interested in is more about the variance covariance matrix of the epsilon t. Okay. What is left when you control for common shock, for structural things? We want to see, don't forget, we want to analyze the temporary change in the relationship, in the dependence between countries or markets. In terms of assumption, epsilon t, what is the assumption which is required? We don't need normality. Okay, if you remember for example, they assume that epsilon t follow Gershwin 1, and then that's why they can beat their correlation. We don't make any parametric assumption on the process by epsilon t. This is a non-parametric test. We don't make an assumption. We simply need some weak assumption of ergodicity. In particular, this corresponds to the A4, A5 assumption of Q and Okay, now what is the innovation? Sigma is the variance covariance matrix, and you can see that the variance covariance matrix can be decomposed in variance and correlation or covariance matrix. If you work only on the sigma, what do you have? You have the curve xy over xy, over the sigma x or sigma y. And of course, that's the reason why Forbes and Rigoban say, okay, if you test the correlation, of course, it's dependent on the volatility, because the correlation takes into account the volatility. Here, we decompose this matrix ex ante before the testing strategy. And what we do is we test first the stability of this sigma of the S matrix, the variance, and conditionally to the break or the stability of this variance matrix, we test for the stability or the breaks in the correlation matrix R. There is a similar paper that proposed to test for common shock or asymmetric shock in inflation. This is a paper of Bata, Sancier, and Osborne in the Review of Economic Statistics this year. What they do is ex post. Once they have the break in the correlation, they identify the break between the variance and the covariance. We do that ex ante. That's a big difference. We integrate directly in the testing procedure the difference, the decomposition in this matrix sigma. Okay? So, what is why I call that the sequential testing procedure? First step, we estimate the model, the VAR, and we test for n distinct unknown variance break. Conditional to that, we rotate the system to test for n distinct unknown break date in the correlation matrix. And in the next part, we apply the Perron-Oka test to see that if the break we found in one and the breaks we found in the correlation are distinct or not. Because if they occur at the same time, perfect. For them, they go on, they are fantastic. It's perfect for me. I don't have any problem. Yeah.
just in terms of understanding about the concept of break, right? I mean, a break means that it's permanent, right? So
yes, you're right. You're right. The problem is that if you want to be very clear, you should test for the first break that increase the correlation and the second break ex post that decrease the correlation. But unfortunately, we are very impatient, so we want to see now if this is if there is a break or not. My answer, and that's perhaps your question about contagion and interdependence, because if it's permanent, that can be interdependence. I would say no, because interdependence, that's not an abrupt movement, that's a smooth. So there are some literature showing that an abrupt change, okay, interdependence do not change by 0 to 1 because of interdependence. It can only be driven by each particular shock. So that's, but I think you're right. If you want to be very precise, you have to test for negative shock after. What we also observe is that, for example, in the case of Asia, in first place there was contagion, so an increase in the dependence, and after they set up some institutional framework, in particular the coordination between the central bank in South Asia, that foster interdependence. That becomes difficult, because then contagion can cause interdependence. Okay, that's why contagion is really a tricky concept. If you're not sure it's contagion, it's better to talk about spillover. Spillover is a magma between contagion and interdependence. Distinguishing contagion and interdependence is difficult.
You differentiate between contagion and spillover. Is it two separate thing or they are interconnected?
That's completely different. Spillover, that can be contagion or interdependence. Because European countries are very interrelated, spillover are increasing. Contagion, perhaps not. When you look at the US, that's the paper we have worked on the municipal bonds. So for the 51 states, we see that there is no contagion, despite the fact they are very interrelated.
So there is spillover.
There is spillover, but not contagion. Contagion, this is a temporary increase in the interdependence. It's not a structural one. Interdependence, this is a structural one. Because European countries decide treaty, free movement of capital and so on, they are interrelated. So interdependence increases, whatever the occurrence of a crisis. We want to see after a crisis there is an abrupt change. That will indicate the transmission and the contagion of the process.
So in the recent global financial crisis, we have observed simultaneous occurrence of contagion and spillover.
And interdependence. Spillover is the combination between interdependence and contagion. That's semantic. But from a policy advice, not the same thing. I will not intervene because I observe that European countries are interrelated. I will intervene because I observe that one country is affected more than what it should have been. And temporarily, it should not be a structural intervention. The case of Greece. If Greece is structurally in deficit, it's not contagion. Okay, I should not intervene.
So I'm sure you're coming to the data, but the sort of data you would use to understand the contagion between countries, would it be stock index data, so predicting swaps and sovereign debt?
Yes.
That's
the goal of this paper is not to distinguish between interdependence and contagion. I have another paper that will do that. Here, that is really to go further on and to focus really on contagion. I don't care.
Yes, but the problem is, as you well know, I mean, if the European banks collapsed, they had this huge exposure to RBS from American banks and so on. I mean, what would you call that? Contagion, a spillover, or what?
I have to distinguish. I have to see if it was.
Yeah, that's a causal relationship. I mean, that can't be tested using these sorts of things.
That's here. So here, what you would say, okay, the interdependence, that would be the gamma. I don't test the gamma. I only test on what is left out of the gamma. If you control for all the relationship, I take what is left, and on this residuals, I see if there would have been an increase or not, particular deviation from this because the interrelation.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be agnostic about why European banks failed, right? I mean, you're saying we're not concerned about the channel, yeah?
But the structural channel. Of course, you can say that epsilon t is dependent on gamma, that's a residual. Of course. I'm not interested in gamma. The structural relationship, I'm not. What I want to see is how, among the residuals, deviation from the steady state. Temporarily, not permanent. The investment of German bank in Greece and so on, that's structural position. I don't care. I want to see in 1 or 2 years if what is left out still increase. That's contagion.
One might ask you, throw the baby with the bathwater, right? Why would you want to do? Don't we want to know because of the structural relationships? Certain things happen, and that's going to affect you negatively.
Yes. But that's an indication. Emergency between structural measure. I want to see if the central bank should intervene. If it's structural, it should not intervene. That should be some reorganization, some structural policy that takes place. If there is a bailing, imagine I have a decision, I have to face a decision. Should I bail out Greece or not? If it's a structural problem, I should not bail out. I should not bail out. Because tomorrow it will be the same. I have to reorganize to put in place some structural relationship. If now I observe that out of this equilibrium there is a deviation, then I should intervene. That's exactly the first step. And that's very important, that's crucial from a policy perspective. Bad luck or bad management? I'm working on the bad luck.
About the discernment, so you think that this is a shock, temporary shock. So you are trying to identify this temporary shock.
Exactly.
And you diversify if it is. So you mean by shock, you mean a short time period, or a long. So how do you define the period? How do you find the shock?
That's what I will do in the test.
Okay.
But that's why I rule out this normality assumption. If you want to make a link with the previous paper on true value, I don't want to work on the mean of the distribution. I want to work on extreme. Of course, the epsilon is not normally distributed. I want to see where I get out of normality. And the normality that's interdependence, okay, perfect. Extreme value, they don't care about the median of the distribution. They want to work on the alpha extreme left side, on side. That's exactly what I want here. I remove everything that is normal in the median, and I work on the extreme to make a sort of correspondence. Okay? At this point, I could do that in one shot. It's possible to do that in one shot. Then I enter a very huge dimensionality problem. Because if I will show you the case, in Asia we have 8 countries, so that means a bound current matrix of 8 times 7 divided by 2, so that means 28 parameters, with potentially 2 or 3 breaks, so that means 70 something bootstrap. Okay, impossible. That's the reason why we decided to split the procedure, the sequential one, between the variance, covariance, and then the distinctiveness of the protocol. Okay, the testing procedure, I can be quick because I only have 5 minutes. That's traditional log-likelihood ratio test of Kou and Perron. Nothing particularly exciting. Distribution, we do take the sup of this sequential LR test and Andrew's 98, because the 93 distribution are not correct. He put and he has a new table in 90. Anyway, Okay, we do first on the variance, and conditionally to that, we extend that for the correlation, the R. And the distinctiveness test, this is to know if the break is common between the variance and the correlation. And here we use the test of Perron-Oka, where you can use the bootstrap simulated critical value. Why bootstrap critical value? Because we are not clearly in the normality assumption, so we prefer to bootstrap. Okay. Monte Carlo experiment, I won't talk about that. I just want to point out two results. The first result is that it's very nice. We have here 250 or 500 observation, the break at the middle of the distribution, that's only for the variance break test. You see here the power with a nominal size of 10%. And what you observe is that if the dimensionality of the system increases out of mind, the power is also decreasing. So, of course, and that's linked to the dimensionality problem I was talking about 5 minutes ago. If you have 51 states of the US, so that means 51 break to determine these 250 observations, of course, the power of the test decreases. So there is always an optimal number of break, or the dimensionality is limited, right, to have the correct size, the power. So the second thing is that if the break date is close to the border, you have to apply the traditional correction of Dibble and Chen, and the correction we proposed with Helmut in 2001 to have a sort of King curve of the break test, of the break test. So we propose to use the bootstrap and the block bootstrap method of Hu and Perron. Okay, let's go to the empirical case. What we consider, as I said, is the Asian crisis. We consider stock indices, daily data. Why they need to see really the transmission from 96 to 98. This is the countries. So you see here what we consider here. This is the var x11, and we try to control for a lot of common shock. Here we retain the one with the US stock index. We have tried different things like the interest rate and so on, just to control for all structural parameters. We want to remove as much as possible structural factors to be left only with the shocks. Confidence bound, we use, as I said, the block bootstrap replication, 1,000 replication, and that's the reason why it takes much time to run the test. Okay, what we observe? First, in the first step, the variance break. And the variance breaks are in line with the intuition. The first one is perhaps Japan, but that's not really a strong break. But it begins with Thailand on May 97. Then there is a second jump in Hong Kong in the end of 97. So this is the break date on the variance. Nothing exceptional from here. It's really in line with what has been done. Here, this is the second step. Once we control for the break in variance, we test for the break in individual bilateral correlation, the R. That's what we obtain. Forget about this level. What is important is this distinctiveness test. What we observe is that all the tests all the breaks seems to be distinct, except the variance test between the countries. So that seems that there is one shock common to all these countries that transmit, that contaminate Asia differently across the countries. Okay? What does it mean? This is South Asia, our country. This is the date of the variance, the break in the variance. Japan, Philippines, Thailand, Taiwan, and so on. Right? This is the onset of the crisis. What happened? So all this is the first semester of 97. What you observe September 97, there is a change, a break, in the relationship between Thailand and Philippines. Okay? So after the breaks in the variance, the first break we observe in the correlation is between Thailand and Philippines. And this break is distinct, statistically distinct from the previous one. Then, in the second phase, we observe a change in the correlation between Thailand and Taiwan, Malaysia and Thailand, etc. Then, third step, the change in the relationship between Thailand and Hong Kong, Thailand, etc. And then you see the diffusion of the variance break. And that's contagion. So that means at the beginning, there was some structural relationship between these countries, whatever they are, I don't care. What I observed is that after the shock induced by the Thailand crisis, the first initial shock, the relationship, the linkages increases significantly in all the region. And what I observed is that the date of this change are different from this one. It's not immediate. You don't have a synchronous one. It takes time before the shock transmits, and you see the transmission. So that I should put a video. It's a dynamic one. It's not synchronous. So if you assume that to test for correlation, like for example, you assume that the variance break occurs at the same time than the correlation one, misunderstand the transmission factor, the dynamic of transmission. Again, that's around the steady state of whatever relation interdependence you have. Okay, we are developing these models for, it's almost done, for the CDS relationship in Europe since 2009. But what is the idea? The idea is that you have to be if you want to analyze clearly the concept of contagion, you have to take into account the distinctiveness between the variance and the convention. I didn't say to you, but on the same sample, Forbes and Rigoban reject the presence of contagion. Which is a little bit odd when you see the So, our message is to say that if you want to analyze contagion, it's important to have these three things: endogenous break, multivariate approach, and clearly separate variance and correlation break if you want to have a clear analysis of contagion. Okay. Thank you.
Might have some time for lunch or
Short question, maybe I haven't understood, but so in your theoretical part, you're making strong assumption that because you are talking about convention, you are talking about temporary shocks.
Yes.
So you are trying to decompose your error into temporary shocks.
Yes.
But when you are trying to identify all this impact, you are talking about breaks, which are not so temporary, I can say.
And that's my interpretation.
So maybe
that's a little bit a myth around the skeleton. I should not have said talk about threat. I don't know the channel. I don't have any assumption on transmission channel.
Yeah, but breaks, I think that's not so temporary.
That's linked to the previous question.
But this is your exact analysis is on short shocks, but so your exposed analysis is, on not so short shocks. I think that
it's not permanent. These shocks are not permanent. They're stationary, so they're not persistent. That's short. All the long-run dynamic is there. Yeah, that's yes. In particular, A4 and A5, I could have something which is persistent there. It violates this hypothesis. I should have a bounded distribution, a finite variance covariance.
Just a simple question. The testing procedure, usually the structural break identification takes place usually in univariate regressions. But here you have specified a bar.
Yes.
So is it like Perron and Perron specification is based on the bar?
Yes.
Is that
Yes, that's the coup Perron, Perron and coup.
because you have equality of variance across?
No, that's the null hypothesis. I test the that's the alternative versus the null. That's my testing hypothesis.
Is it not equality of the variances you are testing? Null hypothesis?
Yeah, the null is under the null of same identical variance over the matrix. And I want to test if some are different from the other. And that's the idea of branch.
So that is the Perron's testing procedure.
Yes, that we adapt sequentially, and we have a bootstrap also to take care into account for the uncertainty in the first step. You know, that's a basic question. Most of the time, conditional testing, we know that there is accumulation of error or statistic error. I control that via bootstrap, like Dufour 2000. So the testing strategy, there's nothing. That's really an adaptation of Perron to Perron.
Just an intuitive question. Which one is prior? Variance break is prior to correlation break, or correlation break is prior to variance break?
The answer is here. The answer is here. The variance break is prior to correlation.
Correlation.
That's intuitively that's that. You could have done the reverse analysis to begin with correlation break and then to test the variance break. No problem. We have done that.
Because the Rigoban classic paper mentioned there might be no contagion, but there might be spillover.
Yes, because he wanted to test the mean of the gamma. I don't care about the gamma.
Thank you.